Red for Ed in Colorado and Arizona today. I'm currently joined by our very own Matt Galka, who's been out there in the field today. I know it's a hot one out there.
Yeah, what's the temperature at right now?
91, but it's supposed to get to 96.
Feels hotter than that, I'll tell you that much. We were out there all morning. If you guys have been following along, thank you so much for joining us on our coverage all day. So we were out there all morning. I mean, we started at Chase Field. If you're not familiar with the Phoenix, Arizona area, Chase Field is where the Arizona Diamondbacks play. And so all the teachers started there, and that is, now let me try and get my bearings straight. So Chase would be on the east and they marched west. No? Wait, how's that work? Yes. Chase would be on the east and they marched west towards the Capitol. So it was about, I think it ended up being about a mile and a half march. And so we were right there in the thick of it. So if you guys were following along all morning, you've probably seen the images. If you were following along with us all morning, I changed my shirt. Thank God. It was very hot out there. I was very sweaty. So I just want to thank the people who did come up to me out there and they said, "Hey, do you need water?" And we had plenty of water, so that's good. So we were right out there in the middle of it, and we had a couple. I know you've had some people up here. We've talking throughout it. We had Ron Hoon, Fox 10's Ron Hoon earlier. I heard Troy Hayden say on our air, it was the most people he's ever seen, and he's been here for 25 years.
Hey,
so
just happened. We just got an update. You were saying 40,000.
About that, yeah.
Phoenix police now saying 50,000 people hit the street.
And that's a lot of people. I mean, that's a lot of people. And just think of, if you're watching around the world, think of your local stadium, wherever your local sports team plays. That's all of these people could fill that most likely. And if it's a smaller stadium, they could fill two of them.
Right.
So just think of all of those people in the streets of Phoenix. And I know, I don't want to oversell it, but I had seen some of the images on Twitter because we were on the ground. So obviously on the ground, all I could see was red. It was all red but from the air shots, just seeing all of Washington Street just lined with those people, it's something that in my short time here in Phoenix I've never seen, and it's something that really you only see during inaugurations or something like that, and so it was really quite the sight to see. And one of the things I did notice, because as I was preparing to come into work today, obviously I didn't dress the part. I was dressed way too hot. I wish I had this polo on all day. But as I was preparing to come to work today, I was wondering, what would the vibe be like?
Yeah.
What would the, would people be angry at the governor? Would they be angry at the legislature? Would there be counter protests? I always think about that. Are there counter protesters? But I will say, just being down there, it was very, and it's day one. It's day one, but it was very, very positive. I mean, you had people, and we see it probably in some of these images, banging drums, playing instruments, chanting. It was a very positive vibe out there, and as we've seen in every big story, how long can the positivity last? We don't know.
Right.
We really don't know. How long does the goodwill last? But at least for today, and I would venture to guess, and I don't like to speculate, but I would venture to guess tomorrow as we head into the weekend, I would venture to guess you still see a very positive vibe from a lot of people. Now, if kids are out of school for a week, and I'm a parent, I don't know if I love that. I don't know, so then that's a wait and see thing. But for all of the people we talked to on the ground, they said they are in this for the long haul. And that included, which surprised me, support staff. And if you're not familiar with it, support staff are not the teachers, but they might be a janitor, or they might work in food service, or the support staff, they're hourly workers. And I asked one of the support staff that we had interviewed, "Hey, are you getting paid for this?" She said, "I'm using all my sick time." And I said, What if it runs out? And she said, "I'm prepared to go the long haul." So that's that's the kind of vibe that was out there. These people really, really feel strongly about what they're doing.
One of my Facebook friends, a parent that I know, I actually grew up with, went to junior high with here in Mesa, and she's one of those that's like, my students are going to go to school until the last scheduled day of school that was supposed to be. So whatever days are tacked out as a result of this, they're not going to go.
And yesterday I did a story about, some kids in Mesa, they're concerned about graduation. And, if you're a senior in high school, at this time of year, you were thinking about finals and graduation and whatever your post-grad plans were, whether it's a party or maybe a vacation with your family before you go off to college or wherever you go. And they were concerned. They're like, well, we don't know what we're going to do. But what we have been hearing from the districts is that graduation dates are set.
Yep.
They're going to go on as planned. This is not going to affect it. So at least, I guess from a district perspective, I don't know if that means they're going to, things are going to be fine no matter what happens, or they're just not expecting this to take a while. But graduation, at least, doesn't seem to be in jeopardy now. Really easy to say in the middle of day one.
Right.
But, we'll see how
you were earlier.
we'll see how it progresses. Oh, there I am. Yeah. Look at that. In my shirt and tie like an idiot in 95-degree weather.
Oh, man. Does it seem like, speaking of the temperature, does it seem like everybody out there is prepared for the weather?
Yes, it did. I mean, and we had plenty of water too.
Yeah.
But you had plenty of people. I mean, you had pool coolers. People just handing out water. Randomly. I wasn't the only one sweating.
Right. Right.
I mean, there's a lot of people out there sweating. So a lot of people handing out water. A lot of the misting fans. There was right near 15th Ave and Washington, so about 2 blocks away from the Capitol. Mm-hmm. There was a misting station.
Oh,
there was one of those cool misting stations. So it seemed like they were, regardless of the weather, they were prepared. They were ready to be out there. And a lot of cases you'd see like, okay, it's going to be 96, I'm not going to go. Mm-hmm. That did not seem like the case today. Yeah. I mean, as the people we saw from those images, didn't seem like anybody was deterred by the weather today. They were out there full force, chanting, walking right along, and like I said, it's about a mile and a half route. So you get to some of those older teachers, that could be a tough one, but they were out there in full force.
Yes. So currently right now happening, this is live in Colorado. Looks like they're changing the picture on us really quickly here. They were at a rally. I'm going to take it back to us. But I mean, this is no longer just Arizona.
I know.
And it hasn't been. It didn't start here.
Right. And that's, one of the things we've seen. It started in West Virginia, I believe. We saw it in Oklahoma. And today, going into today, I just learned about the Colorado situation because we've been so focused on the Arizona situation. Mm-hmm. But we're not the only state that's having to deal with this sort of stuff.
Yep.
And a lot of states around the country, they looked at West Virginia, they looked at Oklahoma, they're looking at Arizona today, they're looking at Colorado, and they're seeing how this plays out because we're in the fact business, and education cuts have happened. It's not just an Arizona problem. It's happened in a lot of states. And so a lot of people are watching this and wondering how much power they have as teachers, as educators, to make change. Mm-hmm. Now, again, that's a totally separate issue from what side of the issue people are on. But people are watching to see how these things play out because, if it wasn't for West Virginia, there might not have been an Oklahoma, or there might not have been an Arizona, or there might not have been a Colorado. So people are watching and waiting to see what happens. And I think I mentioned this earlier. You talk to a lot of teachers. Let's say there was no Red for Ed. There were no red T-shirts. There was no hashtag. They're not convinced that the governor would have come out with this 2020 plan.
Right.
So on one hand, you could say they've already made change. They've already forced something. Now, what happens with that plan? What kind of ultimate plan we get? Governor says he's going to stick by that 20 by 2020 plan. We'll have to wait and see how he works it out with with our state lawmakers.
All right, Matt, I don't want to take up too much more of your time today because I know you're busy. You're one of, I believe, 6 crews we have covering Red for Ed today here.
Oh, we're doing it the best that anybody in Phoenix.
Right?
I'll tell you that much right now. We were on the ground. I didn't see any other reporters walking the route, so I was just going to throw that out there. I'm just going to throw that out there.
But one unique thing, we're live right now. We're on the Fox 10 Phoenix Facebook Live. Currently about 450 watching there. I want to see how many are watching on YouTube as well. About more than 700. So one unique thing about this live coverage, we talk about one-man band reporters. You've seen them out there, the ones who shoot and edit their own stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Here on News Now, it's like a one-man, one-lady show.
You're running the board here. Right. You got everything going, yeah.
But we can interact with the viewers real time. So taking a look at some of these comments, I want to see what some people. Let's start with Facebook, the Fox 10 Phoenix Facebook Live. Do you have any questions in particular for Matt as someone who just got back to the studio from walking with these teachers and their other supporters too, right? Friends, family?
Oh yeah, it wasn't just teachers out there. I mean, we talked to some parents. Some of them had their kids out there too, you know. And so it wasn't just teachers out there. You had a large amount of teachers. I talked to somebody who came up from Tucson, which is about 2 hours south of us, an hour and a half. A couple of people came from the high country, you know, around Flagstaff, about 2 hours north of us. So, you know, this was a statewide thing. And, you know, we had live report. We had Marcy Jones in Prescott earlier. So we, you know, we had this covered for a good amount of the state. I see, you know, some of our, I don't know, you've been monitoring the comments. What have you been hearing from people around the country? Is it a lot of support, a lot of questions? I mean, what? A
lot of questions. Yeah. In particular, right now, people are saying, isn't Arizona a right-to-work state? Aren't there teacher unions? Shouldn't, you know, why are they going up against the government versus shouldn't they try to be negotiating with the union?
That's tricky. Okay, so that's one of the things I did. You know, when you delve into this story, that's one of the things you read about. Because at first I remember thinking, you know, could the teachers strike? Could the teachers strike? And then it's a walkout. Why isn't it a strike? Why is it not a walkout? Et cetera, et cetera. I'll try to give it the shortest, most concise answer I can in that. Yes, it's a right-to-work state. There's not necessarily, there is a teachers union, and there isn't on the same token. But Arizona Educators United is different from that teachers union, and obviously not all of the teachers in the union voted for this. Yes. So those specific that swath of people is not technically considered a union that is striking. They are walking out. Now there is some back and forth about whether they can or can't. There was a legal opinion from the Attorney General here in Arizona in the 70s that prohibits a strike, you know, from teachers, but doesn't necessarily prohibit teachers from walking off of the job. And I know it sounds like I'm going back and forth and saying the same thing.
Legalities and all that.
That's the murkiness of this. I mean, the facts are that could the teachers lose their job because they're doing this? Yes, that is a fact. They could be. That's a big could. I mean, that is, you know, if it's up to the district if they want to decertify the teacher and this and that. But for all of you, you know, who followed this and thinking about this at home, I want you to think about the gravity of the situation. And let's say there are 40,000 teachers, just teachers. Let's just say there are 40,000 teachers participating. Could you imagine firing 40,000 teachers? Right. It's just not going to happen. I mean, look, I feel confident in going out on that limb and saying it's just not going to happen. How are we going to replace them? I don't, you know, people will say we have a teacher shortage in Arizona, but how are you going to replace 40,000 teachers, especially ones that have to go get their certificate for teaching and go to school and this and that? So it's not that easy, because that is some of the criticism I've heard over the past 2 months or so since this has been going on. You know, when I'm monitoring social media, fire them like Reagan fired all the air traffic controllers. Little different situation.
Right.
You know, a little different situation. Couldn't get all those teachers back. So is that an option? They could lose their job. Yes. Likely, I'm confident in saying no, they probably won't. And that's the murkiness that is it a strike? Is it a walkout? Is it a union? This and that. Yeah. That's the murky water we're getting into.
So as a native Arizonan, I lived away. I lived in Texas for about 5 years, came back. I told you I was surprised by how many people who taught me growing up still teaching.
Sure.
But it's also, I've realized, me growing up in Arizona, you've always known it's a melting pot. You know, none of us are originally from here.
Yeah, nobody's from here, right?
But, you know, you got such a mix in terms of educators, too, when you're talking about charter schools, public, private, how many teachers have been here for 2 years versus been here for 30.
Sure.
I mean, it's just there. And the vote, we were talking about the vote, was it 72-28?
It was, I believe it was 70, there was something like 74 to 78% said yes. Like, let's call it 77.
To support the walkout.
And I remember doing the math because I had covered, I was there on site that night when they announced it. And I remember covering it, and I did the math, like quick math on my calculator on my phone. They said 57,000 people participated.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking 77%, so I typed it in. That's about 44,000 yeses.
Yeah.
Now that wasn't all teachers. It was some, you know, it was staff, something like that. But I mean, that's still an overwhelming amount of people involved in this vote who did support it. And you know, when you cover stories like this, you really do try to get all sides.
Yes.
And I understand in every vote, it doesn't matter if it's a presidential election, local people vote for or they vote against, right? There's always going to be people who didn't vote for, and that's fine. I remember asking Joe Thomas, the head of the teachers union, any ill will to the people who said no, and he said no. That's their right to do that, but we believe what we're doing is the right thing. And we've heard from teachers who say, I don't think this is a good idea, and their opinion is very valid. But I think 50,000 teachers in the state, until you hear 25,000 plus saying, yes, this is a bad idea, then I still believe a majority of them think this is a good idea. So that's how I've been trying to gauge this. There's always going to be people who are going to go against it, and that's their right to do that, and that's their right to have that opinion. But I think a majority, at least heading into today, questioning the support of this, I think today's demonstration leaves no question about how I think a majority of our educators feel about this.
Yeah. All right, our very own Matt Galka, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it. We're going to